Hence, without further ado, I will invite Jun Huang to take us through today's webinar. Are you attracting your most valuable source of talent? Jun Huang, please.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Jun Huang, a data scientist from JobTech. And today in this webinar, I'll be guiding you towards on how you can attract your most valuable source of talent, which are your internal talents. Now, everyone is talented, and this is what we at JobTech believe in. And in today's job climate of changing job demands and the scarcity of in-demand talents, external recruitment should not always be the solution. And it's time for us to take a look into our internal talents and how we can promote internal mobility to tap on this valuable resource. One classic example of such changing job demands would be the digitization that is happening across many sectors in Singapore. And to illustrate this phenomenon, let us zoom into the HR sector in Singapore. So we have ran an analysis of skills requirement in HR roles demanded from Q1 2018 to Q4 2019 last year, and found that there has been a steadily increasing demand of digital skill sets in HR professionals. And in response to this rapidly changing job demands, what would your company do? Will your company be looking at restructuring, or will your company be constantly looking out for external talents with such digital skill sets? Or should your company start looking into internal mobility as a strategy to tackle this phenomenon? So we at JobTech believes that internal mobility is key to tackle such phenomenons. So if you have been with me throughout this short period of time, you might have realized that I have been mentioning internal mobility quite a few times. So what is internal mobility? So internal mobility actually refers to the movement of employees to different opportunities within the same company. So if you can promote internal mobility, you will be actually efficiently tapping onto your internal talents and increasing your candidate pool. And when you are looking at your candidate pool, you'll not be just looking at external talents, and you'll be looking at an extra source of talents, which is your internal talents. And other than increasing your talent pool, candidate talent pool, internal mobility also helps to increase employees' engagement by 49%. So in other words, internal mobility lets employees understand that the employees are not just in a company to fulfill a role, but rather the company is also investing in the employee's career and is interested and concerned about employees' growth prospects. Well, another reason why internal mobility should be looked at is that internal employees create significant cost savings as opposed to external hires. So, you save the time and cost from putting up job advertisements and waiting for candidates to apply. And you also save the time taken to know your external hires more through multiple rounds of interviews. And all of this time and cost are business costs that can be saved if you were to redirect these efforts towards looking into internal mobility within the company. And with the advantages of internal mobility, however, internal mobility efforts in companies are still limited to some extent. So what happens is that many companies are still taking a very passive kind of approach, where they put up a job advertisements on an internal platform or intranet, and they wait for employees to apply. So what might be some of these factors that are hindering the uptake of internal mobility within the company? And in a survey conducted by Deloitte, where it collated responses from HR and business leaders, 49% of these respondents indicated that the main factor towards the hindering of internal mobility within the company is that is of poor implementation. So there's a lack of process to properly identify and move employees. In other words, companies are unsure which employee is best suited for what role, and on what basis is this movement of employees justifiable. Well, the second factor that 48% of the respondents highlighted is that there's insufficient internal employees within the company that can be moved around. And lastly, will be more of a culture issue, whereby internal moves within the company, there's a lot of resistance from the direct manager who is managing that particular employee. So us at JobTech, we believe that these barriers can definitely be tackled. And we are also looking into tackling these barriers towards internal mobility because of how important we think this is. So especially for the first and the second point on poor implementation and shortage, which I will try to address these 2 points in the subsequent slides within this webinar. So how should you start? Or how should a company start? So what we believe is that you should start recognizing your employees' ability through skills. And recognizing your employees' ability through skills would mean that you are able to assess your employees' strengths and weaknesses. And if you understand their strengths and weaknesses, you will be able to know whether an employee is suited for a role or if an employee is not suited for a role. And to do through skills, we believe that you should do it at a more granular level and not just doing a one-to-one skills match. So what do I mean by that? When we are looking at a more granular level of skills and using skills to assess your employees, we are looking at further breakdowns of skills. So some of the categories that we have here are skills and competencies from the skills framework developed by SkillsFuture. So the first one that we have here is generic skills and competencies. And this to be known in another way would be more of like personality traits or soft skills. And this includes skills like leadership and problem solving. The second category would be technical skills and competencies. And this would entail more of knowledge in a specific area or task-specific skills like risk analytics and people performance management. Well, we also included one more category called other requirements. And these are accreditations or certifications that are needed to perform a specific role, like a driving license, certification. So with this breakdown of skills, we are able to assess the employee in much greater detail as compared to using just skills without categories. So to bring back to our point about internal mobility, on why I've just mentioned on why recognizing your employee skills is important, because that sets up the fundamental step, the first step towards internal mobility. Well, as for the second step, with skills as a fundamental, what are the common approaches that we see out there is that the systems out there are using a 1:1 skills match. So what do I mean by that? So in systems out there, for the HR, when the company has a job posting, HR will put a job posting within the system and manually key in the skills required of the job. And on the candidate's end, the candidate is also required to manually key in the skills that he or she has. And what the system will be to match the skills stated by the candidate and the skills stated by the HR. So to put this into perspective, we have this customer service officer who is a very good employee. He is a very diligent and hardworking employee who has been with the company for many years. And this customer service officer has technical skills like market profiling and business risk assessment. On the other hand, what the company needs right now is a relationship manager with technical skills like market research and client investment suitability. So how do the systems outside that use skills matching, one-to-one skills matching work? Is that they will try to match market profiling here with market research, and you'll try to match business risk assessment with client investment suitability. And what happens after that is that because market profiling is not a direct match to market research, and because business risk assessment is not directly equals to client investment suitability as a skill, the system will return 0 matches. And this is a kind of approach that we think should not be applied to internal mobility here. And what we will be proposing here as a new approach from us at JobTech is to use skills adjacency as the new approach to tackling internal mobility. So what is skills adjacency? Skills adjacency would mean how similar is one skill to another. So to give some examples on how skills adjacency could work in a more real life concept is that from our skills adjacency model, we are able to determine how roles are similar to other roles. So in this heat map, you can see the lighter colors are actually signifies higher similarity between the roles. So customer service here is similar to a sales role. Sales roles are similar to marketing roles. And software engineering roles are similar to data analytic roles. And they are similar on the basis of the skills required of these roles. And in each of these skills required of these roles, they are similar to each other. And so to go back to our example previously, if we were to be using skills adjacency instead of using a one-to-one skills match, from the skills adjacency model, we will be able to see that market profiling is somewhat similar to market research, and business risk assessment is somewhat similar to client investment suitability. And using this framework, instead of ruling out this customer service officer who could be a good match for this new role as a relationship manager, you can get more candidates, more potential candidates that can fit into this new role given the appropriate training. So to also elaborate a bit further is that for a one-to-one skills match system, you will be actually ruling out a lot of possible candidates, which is something that in the survey highlighted by Deloitte that I mentioned just now, is that HR and business leaders always feel that there's a lack of candidates. And if you were to be using a system that uses a one-to-one skills match, you will have very little candidates to consider. And if we were to use skills adjacency, a system that is based on skills adjacency instead for internal mobility, you will then realize actually there's a lot more candidates that you can consider for a new role within the company. So what happens after the identification and matching process? The next step would be to introduce courses to train up this customer service officer for the relationship manager role. And the courses that you can be looking at can be found in many of the different institutions in Singapore, like the universities or polytechnics, or also like training providers like NTUC. These are places whereby you can look for courses to train up your internal talents for the new role. And so to summarize everything that we went through, for us at JobTech here, we have this talented platform that introduces a more streamlined process towards internal mobility. So as an active HR personnel, you are looking into internal mobility, what we will do is to post up a job posting within Talented. So for example, the same example that we have highlighted just now is that perhaps you want to create a relationship manager role. what Talented would do is to automatically extract out all the skills requirement or all the skills required of a relationship manager. And there's no need for manual inputs on your side. And on the other hand, on the candidate side, what will happen is that the employee will upload their resume into Talented, and Talented will automatically extract out all the skill competencies of this particular employee. So no manual entry is required on the employee end either. So what happens after the HR poses a job and indicate that he or she wants to search for candidates? Talented will automatically screen out all the hundreds or even thousands of employees if your company has that big count of employees. Is that you'll screen through all of your employees and find out who are the suitable candidates and who are the potential candidates. And potential candidates meaning those who are not a direct match, but they have similar skill sets that can be further developed and trained to fit this new role. And for the potential candidates, the Talented system will suggest courses for these potential candidates to patch up so that these potential candidates will have a better match to this new role and have a higher possibility of performing in that role. So right now, I've introduced you the Talented system in a more slideshow kind of image. What I can do right now is to go into our Talented system so that I can bring you through this process once again to make it more relatable to you guys. So just give me a moment while I change my screen. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, okay, can you guys see my screen here? Okay, so what I have here is a demo account. To bring you guys to our Talented internal mobility feature here. So after signing in, okay, so what we have here is basically an onboarding screen. If you are a first timer for an employee or for HR personnel, the first time you sign in, what we would like you to do is to actually upload your resume so that we can have a repository of all the resumes within your company. So that when in the event that you are looking at internal mobility, you will be able to search through all of the different resumes within your company. So let me just bring you directly into the internal mobility feature. So on a side note, Talented not just only has internal mobility as a feature, talent acquisition feature, we also have for external recruitment. And if you guys are interested, we can always talk about it more later. So going into internal mobility, into the internal mobility feature. So if you are a HR and you have a new job posting, what you can do is to key in some of these details of the job posting that you have. So to make things simple, I'll just key in Java developer. So Java developer is more of a programming kind of role. And for job description, you can always enter in the full job description that you have. But as this is a demo, I'll just make things simple and just put Java developer. So what happens next is Talented will analyze what you have keyed in and automatically pull out the skills required. If you can see on the right hand here, required of this Java developer role. So because of how simple my example is for the job description, only Java is put up. So within the organization, we have found 3 particular employees that is a suitable fit for this Java developer role. So naturally, the software engineers within the company will be a direct good fit for this Java developer role. But they will be a direct good fit is because they already have this Java skill. However, I would like to bring you into this data scientist more that we found to be a potential candidate. And why is this data scientist more a potential candidate is that even though data scientist more does not have this Java skill, it has other skills that are similar to this Java skill that makes him a potential candidate to be trained. So if you were to click into data scientist more, you'll be able to see that this data scientist more is lacking the Java skill. And if you were to train up data scientists more in this Java skill through the courses that we recommend, data scientists more would then have a much higher match after training, which is a 50% match. And the courses that we are recommending here are from the different training providers in Singapore, from the polytechnics, the universities, or even NTUC Learning Hub. So this is a short demo that I have to just introduce the internal mobility feature that we have on Talented. We definitely have other features as well, like external recruitment. If you're looking for fresh talents, we can show you what fresh talents that we have. And also we have also labor insights as well. The labor insights feature is more targeted towards organizations that are interested in a more market view of the jobs market. So for consulting firms or for government organizations. Yep. So yep, I'm done with my sharing here. So just give me a moment to share. Okay, yeah, I'm done here with my presentation. So let me just pass it back to Melvin here.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Jun Huang, for the insightful sharing. I'm sure HR practitioners out there will be giving the concept of internal mobility some serious thought, and perhaps deep dive into uncovering some of the skills and talents their internal staff may have possessed that they may not actually know of at this point in time. As we give some time for the participants to post their questions and comments in the Q&A section, perhaps we can start off with some questions. Could you share more about the vision and engine behind the Talented platform? What is it based on, and how was it actually? Why did JobTech actually started the Talented platform?
Okay, so to talk more about the vision of how the concept of the Talented platform came about is that we at JobTech strive to be a people platform, and we really want to change the way how different groups of people organization think about people management and development. So for educators, we want to change the way how educators train up talents. And on the people side, we want to change how people find jobs and also how they learn jobs. And also, not how they learn jobs, how they learn so that they can be a better fit for jobs. And also how people can plan for longer careers, especially when retirement age is increasing. And for the employer side, we also want to make sure that they are looking at the correct talents at any point in time. And that's for the vision that we have for Talented. For the engine behind Talented, so within Talented, we have a lot more features as I have briefly mentioned in the short demo just now. And from internal mobility to external recruitment to labor insights. And all of these features or benefits that we have on the Talented platform is actually powered by our core natural language processing engine, something that was actually researched for probably more than 10 years by top machine learning and machine learning experts and data scientists. And with this core technology, we are able to process the millions of jobs and even resumes that we have on a daily basis, and to churn out all the different kind of analytics model that we have from the labor insights. If you want to know about how a certain job is, the certain job supply or demand within the job market, we can tell you exactly how it is. And if you want to look into fitting and candidates to job postings, this is all powered through the natural language processing engine that we have.
Okay, thanks for that. So based on the data and partners that JobTech has actually worked with over the past couple of years, what are some of the more common job roles or pairing of job roles that could benefit most from internal mobility?
Okay, so okay, if you were to look at the heat map, so I wouldn't give a very exact kind of common job role pairing, and it ultimately depends on what is your starting base and what is your end goal. So in the heat map, maybe let me see if I can bring back to this chart. So these are just some of the common examples that we have. If you're customer service role, you will definitely have a much higher similarity to the sales role, and for sales role to the marketing role, software engineering role to a data analytics role. And then they are similar because of how similar their skill sets are. But however, if your starting base is a customer service officer, and if you are looking at a role, data analytics role, you'll see that this pairing is pretty much off. So because of how dissimilar their skills are. So so it ultimately depends on where you start off as and where you want to end off at.
Okay, so thanks for that. I think let's stay on the topic of skills adjacency. There are a couple of questions that is posted by the participants on skills adjacency, namely from Dixon and from JF. Okay, so basically Dixon asked, how is skills adjacency calculated, and whether or not does it take into account the weightage and importance of one skill over another? So what would be the system that powers this skills adjacency piece within the JobTech model?
Okay, so to answer this, maybe I can give a bit more context. So skills adjacency is essentially a type of skills matching, just that it's not a 1:1 match. And to put it a bit more technically, it's not 1:1, but maybe 0.7 is to that one skill. So that is what we mean by skills adjacency. So maybe I should talk about skills matching first. So for skills matching, how is skills matching generally calculated? Is that in outside systems, perhaps you will also be seeing this as well in outside system, is that when HR enters in skills and then candidates entering skills. So for example, just to give a quick example is that, for example, this particular candidate has 10 skills. And the job posting requires 10 skills. And this candidate actually has 9 out of these 10 skills matched. But the skills match are actually quite non-essential skills. It's not the skills really needed for the core function of the job. But this candidate has 9 out of 10 skills match. And in outside systems, we see a very simplistic approach is that because they have 9 out of 10 skills match, they are then considered a 90% match for their role, which we feel that it shouldn't be the case. Skills match should be based on how important a skill is to a candidate and how important a skill is to a job. So to bring back the same example, so if the candidate has 10 skills and the job posting has 10 skills, and if the core main skill of the candidate is, for example, Java, and the core main skills required of the role is Java as well, even though this candidate only has a one skill match with the job posting, which is the Java skill, the skills match should definitely be more than 10% because this is the crucial part of the job that requires this skill. And also this is a skill that the candidate can perform the best. So this is the fundamentals of what we think skills matching should be. And to answer the skills adjacency, it is essentially an extension to a skills matching. And because of the many job postings and resumes that we have actually analyzed, we are able to see how a particular skill is similar to a different skill. So to use a skill like Java, even though Java is different from the Python skill, we can see that they are pretty similar based on how often they are seen together, just for example. And if they are seen quite often together, there is some kind of similarity between these particular two skills. Yeah. So I hope I can I answered the question about how this skill adjacency is roughly calculated. Yeah.
Right. So there's a follow-on question by JF, which talks about how skills and functional roles are actually related. So basically, his question goes: skills generally responds to functional roles required by jobs within a firm or industry. So, for example, he cited that data analysts from IT sector versus data analysts from a retail sector may perform different function. Hence, their skills may be slightly different as well.
Yes, correct.
So, how does actually JobTech take into account functional areas of a particular job role and the nature of the sector that they are from?
Okay, so but is there like a more intended outcome that that wants to be achieved? So how we assess a particular role is not exactly through the functional areas, but okay. So to just give an example, for example, data analytics in maybe the HR sector is different from data analytics in maybe education sector, for example. The data analytics in the HR sector maybe has something to do more with HRIS, while the data analytics in the education sector would demand different skills. So when we are doing the matching, we are looking at the skills required in that particular job posting itself. So it's agnostic to what industry they are in. So if you were to key in a data analyst in a HR sector, putting in a job description that states exactly what you want out of this data analyst and then data analyst in this HR sector, we will pull out the skills required of this role and match it accordingly. And if you were to put in a job posting that is a data analyst of the education sector, we will then match differently because the skills that are extracted out of this job description or job posting that you have put up are different. So the kind of match you'll get are also different. I'm not sure if I'm answering to what the question wants, what JF wants. Yeah, but if I'm not answering well, maybe you can let me know so I can explain a bit more. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's move on. There are a couple of questions relating to accuracy of the talented platform in identifying the skills required under the job description and what the employers actually want, as well as proficiency level of skills. So just to combine the questions, does talented platform actually identify the proficiency level of the skills that is requested for by employers? And what's the accuracy of job matching that the talented platform has actually achieved at this point in time?
Okay, there is definitely a proficient level that we factor in the talented system, because we do recognize that for entry-level job so for example, for maybe HR executive, the kind of proficiency level required of their skill is definitely different from a HR manager role. And this is factored in not explicitly, but we do have an algorithm that to actually determine what kind of proficiency level is required of this job posting. So you might not need to actually say that I need a very experienced okay, maybe you don't really need a very experienced HR analyst that okay, you don't really need a HR executive that is very proficient in payroll, but from how you actually write out your job description, we are able to infer what kind of proficiency level you want out of a potential candidate. And for candidates wise, from how they actually write up their resumes and their achievements, we are also able to infer what is the proficiency level of the skills that the candidate has. And we will then match these skills from the candidate to the job posting, taking into account the proficiency level. Yep.
Okay. Following on, there's a question from ITE. So they just wanted to find out, how does an organization embark on the talented platform? Does JobTech map the skill sets of the organization into a database? If so, where does the data reside in? How secure is the data? So this is more from the data privacy perspective.
Okay, sure. Okay, I think this is a good question. Okay, so for how does an organization onboard this talented system? It's actually very simple. So if you're HR, there are multiple ways you can do it. So for all the candidates or employers within your company, for HR, if you have all the resumes of your candidates on hand, you can help them upload all your resumes of your employees into the talented platform. Or you can do from a different approach, which is requiring your employee to log onto the system to upload their resume. So, and this pool of resumes would then be the core part within this talented system where we'll do the extraction and mapping. So everything is done on the back end. So what the employee needs to do is to upload resume, and on the HR side, the HR just needs to post out the job posting, and everything will be done on the back end for the matching. And I'm sorry, there's also another part on. Okay, so more about data privacy. So we are also working with NUS. So if I think this would be more relatable to you guys, is that we can. It's not we are flexible in the sense that if there is actually strong requirements that the data needs to reside within the organization side, it's possible as well, as like what we have done with NUS, is that because they are actually very strong on data privacy matters, all the confidential data resides on their end. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a question for Rebecca regarding common skills gaps. So through the data that JobTech has collected and through the different job descriptions and resumes that JobTech has in its database, so what are some of the what are more common skills gaps that JobTech has observed, in particular in the Singapore market? So what has the employers been demanding, but there is actually a lack of people with such skills?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. For this question, it's I guess a simple answer to this question is it depends, because for the whole job market, there are so many different sectors, and within each different sectors, there are so many different kind of occupations, from accounting to HR to software engineering. So it all depends on what you are comparing with. So to answer this common skills gap, I think it depends, but maybe a more general kind of answer to this would be definitely we do see digitalization occurring across different sectors, and digital skill sets are in demand.
Okay, so just to end off with one last question, just to confirm that the Talented platform actually utilizes natural language processing as the key engine to identify skills from the resume.
Okay, sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so the question came from Gibson.
Yeah.
So basically, his question was that is that how does the Talented platform identify skills from the resumes, from the job role descriptions?
Oh, okay. So for this, the core model or core engine behind would be the natural language processing engine. So what we do is within a text, so it could be a text file, it could be a document file, it could be a PDF file even. From this kind of documents, what we will do is we'll read into all the sentences within that document. And in other words, semantic extraction. So we read into the meaning of each sentence and extract out the skills required, extract out the skills that we find within the sentence. So within the document, we are not looking out for keywords. So we are not looking out for, let's say, a Java keyword and then say, oh, you have a Java skill. So it's not that straightforward, because we believe that if you are just doing a keyword match, we'll be missing a lot of skills that we can actually get out of a particular document, be it resumes or job description. So we want to take this further and read into the meaning of a sentence. So for example, if you were to write something like attentive to details, we will extract out meticulous as a skill out of this phrase or sentence. Just to quote an example. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a follow-up question from JF in response to the earlier answer that JobTech has given. So basically, his comment and his question was that a data analyst may indicate Python as a skill, and a programmer may also do likewise. However, a data analyst may be using it from the data analytics perspective, and the programmer might use it from the programming perspective. So if the context of the skill is applied, if the context is not applied, would the algorithm that JobTech has behind the Talented platform indicate a high skills match for these two job roles?
Okay. This is actually a very good question, and it's also a technical one. So yeah, we do agree that Python as a skill in data analysis is different from Python with a programmer. And how we determine context is based on the other skills required of a data analyst and or a programmer. So Python might not be just the only skill that data analyst or programmer has. The data analyst and programmer might have multiple other skills. And how we draw context from how Python works in a particular job role is through the different skills that the data analyst has. So if the Python skill is surrounded by skills like data analytics or maybe data visualization, as compared to a programmer where the Python skill might be surrounded by other programming languages like Java or maybe like system integration skills, we will know that this skill mean differently because of how the other skills are surrounding around this particular skill. Okay, hope that answers the question. Yeah, okay.
Right. So we just take the last two quick questions from SC Lee as well as Jun Huang. So where does JobTech actually draws the recommended courses from? And Talented platform is actually for internal mobility. So it sources data from internal skills and competencies of the employees. So will there be access and connection to the external pool?
Okay. So for SC Lee, where do we draw recommended courses from? Is that we get all the courses from all the course providers in Singapore, and for the recommended courses, we will look at what skills are this particular, what skills does this particular employee lack, and we will then take this skill to match it with the courses all around Singapore and see which provider provides training or upskilling for this particular skill. And that's where the recommended courses will come in play. And of course, if you are missing more than one skill, if a particular course can teach you more of such skills, we will definitely recommend those first. So there is also a match score for the recommended courses. As for the second question from Kaylen, okay, so this is for internal mobility. So there is definitely access to the external pool. So if you are interested, I can maybe do a quick demo again. Just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, so, oops. Okay, you guys can see, right? Okay, yeah. So for external recruitment, we can look at the external recruitment module here we have, that we have. So for example, you might be looking at fresh talents. You are looking to hire fresh graduates. So just to give example, the same example that I have for internal mobility. So for example, you are looking for a Java developer, a fresh graduate Java developer, and to make things simple, just key in your job description, and we will automatically source candidates for you. So for fresh talents, these are the pool that we have from the different institutions, universities, and polytechnics. Yeah, and if you're interested, we can help you source and reach out to these candidates if to tell them that you have this role called Java developer, and you are looking into people of their skill sets, and they can apply with your particular company. Yeah, so this is the module that we have for external recruitment. And of course, if you do want fresh, we have for professional talents as well. Those that are out of university or polytechnics for more than 3 years. We also have different settings that you can adjust. For example, the hiring period, employment type, what kind of years of experience do you want? You can adjust as well. Academic qualifications, so on and so forth. Yeah, all of these are adjustable. These settings are also available in the internal mobility module, where you can configure as well. Yep. So hope this is helpful. Let me go back to. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jun Huang. I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Thank you everyone for listening in and your active participation on this webinar. We will share the recording of this webinar along with the slides. And if there's any question that you have, please feel free to reach out to SSG or reach out to Jun Huang from JobTech. Okay. As a follow-up from this webinar, we'll be sending you a link to our online feedback form. So please let us know if this session was useful and how we can further improve our webinar series. Thank you once again, and please look out for the next webinar that Skills Future will be conducting on the 26th of March. And please have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thanks.